unbox our kit. So these bags have everything that we're going to use throughout the course of the semester. It doesn't include everything that we're going to use, but there's going to be some things in the kit that we'll need you guys to buy, like little mini marshmallows, vegetable oil, things like that that I didn't want to ship. So let's kind of go roughly in the order of how we're going to do things. So in your kit, you're going to have a whole series of Ziploc bags, and I've labeled the first lesson, cleverly lesson 1, with a 1 on the Ziploc bag. And what's inside of this one is going to be some graduated cups. We're going to use those over and over throughout the semester. So instead of having glass cylinders, we're using plastic graduated cups. You're going to have a glass rod, which is wrapped up. And you're going to have a plastic rod, which is also in our bin. And you're also going to have a 3D printed catapult. And that catapult also will have a little lever that you're going to install and you just put in there. And you're going to use the rubber band, and we're going to fling stuff. And we're going to test out the tension and the strength of the rubber bands on how far things can go. And we also have some popsicle sticks or tongue depressors, depending on how you want to call those things. And we're going to use those to make a low-cost catapult. And we're going to collect some data around those things. So that's what we're basically going to be doing in lesson 1. Then what I wanted to do is move us on into doing some electronics and getting us outside some. So the next activity is really going to be built around plants and trees. And believe it or not, for one of the activities where you just have a plain manila envelope, you're going to make something called a clinometer. And that's going to help us measure the height of buildings and trees without ever leaving the ground. It's a good way of teaching particularly upper elementary kids the idea of proportions. And in geometry it's called similar triangles, but you can do it just with proportions. And in your plant Ziploc bag, which cleverly says plants on it, you're going to find a bottle with a cap with a hole in it. The hole's on purpose because you're going to have a grow cup, and you're going to pop your grow cup in there, and we're going to grow a plant hydroponically using a method called crafty hydroponics. And I've included some nutrient solution in a bottle that is nicely taped up. We also have a protractor that's going to be used for our clinometer, and you have some little seed starting kits, and inside you also have some seeds. And so different people have different seeds, and we're going to do some microgreen experiments. Okay. And you also have some washers, which you're going to use for the clinometer. So that is kind of going to be activity 2, and that's going to go on for a little while because it takes a while for our plants to germinate and grow. And what we're going to do to test those and watch those is we're going to quickly jump into computational science. So inside of your kit, I've included a Grove Inventor kit, but we've made some modifications to it. So I've taped it up because it's actually kind of full. So in your Grove Inventor kit, you'll have a microbit. Yours might be out of the box. There'll be a lot of those. You're going to have a temperature sensor. This is for water and air. It will do both. It does come with a little booklet, and we'll just post the booklet on the website. And the booklet gives you different activities that you can do with it. And inside of it, you have a little speaker, so you can make sound. You're going to turn on and off an LED light based upon temperature. You've got a gesture sensor, which means that you can wave at it and make things happen. You have a little angular sensor, which means that you can control, say, the brightness of an LED strip. We have a little display, so that's where we can actually tell the temperature and things like that on our little display. You have a distance sensor, and what I thought we might do is make a social distancing app where a LED or the alarm will sound if you get within a certain distance of some object. You have a little light sensor that's going to detect how light it is, which is really useful for your plants. You also have a grow shield. That's what is kind of the controller for your microbit. You're going to insert your microbit into this, and we will go through that. I've included some alligator clips because later on we're also going to make a soil moisture sensor just using the microbit, alligator clips, and some nails. USB cable to connect it to your computer. And I've only included the USB to micro USB, so if you have a newer Mac or things like that, you might have to get another cable. You need a cable that goes from your computer to a micro USB, as that's what's on the microbit. So if you have a USB-C port only on your computer, you'll need a USB-C to micro USB. And you have a really cool LED strip, and that's where we'll start. Kids love LED strips, and they will play with LED strips forever. So all that goes back in the box. And we will tape it back up. So what we were going to do is we were going to do computational science for a couple of weeks. And hopefully what we'll be able to do is create a thermometer measure for our seedlings and be able to let us know if our seedlings are dropping in temperature. And then when we make our hydroponic unit, be able to monitor the water and just learn basically how you can use some of these low-cost computational science pieces of equipment. Then once we get through our computational science, we'll play around a little bit with little bits, so I just want you guys to see these. There's a lot of these on the market. And these are little magnetic circuits that are similar to micro bit in the Rogue Inventor kit, but they kind of snap together. And this is a temperature sensor, so you can just read the reading here. And it doesn't require any programming at all. So these are really useful if you're working with younger kids and you want to teach them the idea of computational thinking, creation of an algorithm. We will also go through some of the the San Francisco Unified School District's curriculum, as they have an excellent K-5 computer science curriculum with a number of activities that you don't get a computer to get started on, and we don't need those as part of the kit because we can just make those at home. Then, after we get through our computational science, what I wanted to tackle was electricity. And we might switch around things, kind of depends on what the weather is going to look like. Because in our electricity unit, I've also included some little solar panels. What I wanted us to do is go outside when it's sunny and test out filtration light, and so we can see the current that is coming in and out of the solar panels based upon the type of light that we're allowing through it using filters. And so I've included different filters for different students. So some people have red and green ones, some people have blue and purple ones. So that way we'll be able to compare and contrast data across. I have included a multimeter. Primarily, I think everyone should know how to use a multimeter, particularly if you ever drive a car and you have a dead battery. It's useful to know if it's the battery that needs to be replaced or if it's something more serious. And we're going to use this to measure the current coming off of our solar panels and also just make sure our batteries work. And inside the rest of the kit are wires and little motors. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically learn the basics of series and parallel circuits. And I've included some batteries, and I've also included some wires so we can mess around with changing the circuitry and learn how basic circuits work. And I think understanding how a basic circuit works is very important, because if you ever change a light switch in your house or do anything with wiring in your house, it's good to know how circuits work and what the safety protocols that you have to have in place. So that's going to be our electricity section. That will probably take a couple of class periods, just like our computational science will take 2 to 3 class periods. And one of the things that is not included in the kit here is we're going to do some astronomy, and that's going to be a lot of observation, and we're going to use some apps. And I wanted to also try to get to that in October before the weather gets cold. So again, we'll probably play it a little bit by ear. And then what I wanted to do is, again, depending on weather, is revisit, as I wanted to have you guys learn to program little robots. So I didn't have enough R2-D2s for everybody because we have a relatively large class. So some of you guys are getting little R2-D2 robots that you can program with an app on your phone or iPad or Android. Other folks are getting a little Sphero mini ball, but it's the same exact programming. They just don't make our R2-D2s anymore, so I couldn't get them. Well, I couldn't get them for under $120. These little mini Spheros are about $40 each. I bought the R2-D2s back in the day for about $40. So some of you will have them. I have about 12. So 12 of you guys will get them. I will randomly distribute them. I have a couple of BB-8s as well. So you guys will learn how to program the robots. Then we're going to move into force and motion and engineering. Okay? And so one of the things that we're going to mess around with is gravity and making parachutes and understand basic forces. So we have a little parachute bag. I tentatively have this as our second class. I'm not sure. I'm still thinking about it. I'm thinking I'm going to push this off till when the weather gets bad, so we can just do it indoors, so we don't have to be outside. And basically all that it is testing how you can manipulate different variables for your parachute. And so I've just got very simple stuff in this bag for you guys. Some aluminum foil, paper towel, a tennis ball, some clothespins, a heavy washer, and I just threw in one ball of twine that's in the kit generally, because we're going to reuse this over and over again, just like our masking tape that we will reuse. I also included a ruler because I didn't know if folks had rulers handy, and so inches and metric. And as we're messing around with our force in motion, we're going to have a unit on simple machines, because that always shows up on our standardized exam. So I've 3D printed a bunch of simple machines. And so we have some gears, some pulleys, we have a lever, and we're going to mess around with wheel and axles. And how we're going to mess around with the wheel and axles is in our force and energy. So I've 3D printed you guys some ramps. I've also included a Hot Wheels car, because we're going to collect some data on how fast that they go down the car and the speed of that. I've also printed some balloon cars, and we're going to race these. There's 3 different kinds that are scattered throughout the kit, so we're going to compare and contrast how those work. And I've included some sandpaper to change the friction of the ramp to see if that impacts things. I've put some latex balloons in the bag, and I've put it inside of a smaller bag. So just in case if somebody has a latex allergy and they didn't get back to me yet, is that you have some balloons to go with your kit. We also have a force meter that is included in your kit, and what we're going to do is we're going to explore something called static and kinetic friction on how much energy does it take to move something versus to keep something moving. And that is kind of our pressure unit, okay? Or force and energy unit. And we've got simple machines, and then we're going to do some engineering activities. The engineering activities might take a couple of days, and I ran out of space in my Grove Inventor box before they got full. So I did put in a couple more sensors. So we have a little screen in your engineering bag, which is going to allow you to see the readings from the sensors on your microbit. And I also put in a temperature and humidity sensor. All right, and I put in some extra cables and things like that, because this is where we're also going to use the microbit to use nails to measure the soil moisture of a plant. So we're going to need you guys to pick up some dirt somewhere, whether from your yard or a gardening store or something like that. And I've included some straws, some toothpicks, as we're going to build some straw towers. We're going to reuse our tennis ball. We're going to make a NASA engineering activity, building a straw tower as tall as you can, learn about the idea of center of mass, gravity, and things like that. And then our last class won't require any kits, as we're going to talk about how you can get funding for your class. And so we'll have a grant writing session. And all the class materials we're going to run on Zoom, and we're also going to videotape them, so just in case if you can't miss one. And how I'm thinking of operating the class is that we will go through some of the experimental activities during the course of the week, collect some data, and then come back and talk about it during the class time. So that's it. Welcome to the Living Earth.